Welcome to this chess analysis. Today, we're breaking down the final match between Fabiano Caruana and Dommaraju Gukesh, played at Norway Chess on January 6, 2025. Caruana plays white, Gukesh plays black, and the game begins with e4.
e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4. The Italian opening is on the board. Black responds with knight to f6.
d3, h6, and then a3 from white. Now black plays g6, aiming to fianchetto the bishop to g7 and control the long diagonal. White develops with knight c3, and black follows up with bishop g7. h3 prevent the knight from jumping to g4. d6, opening the diagonal for the dark-squared bishop. White continues with bishop e3, preparing to push d4 and gain central control. a6, aiming to prevent white's knight from jumping to b5 and challenging the bishop that could target d4. Queen d2, now white ready for both kingside and queenside castling. If castled queenside, the rook will come to the d-file, increasing pressure on the d4 square.
Now, bishop to e6 has been played, intending to exchange the bishops. Bishop captures on e6 and recaptures on e6. Then, knight to e2, planning to reposition the knight to g3 and eventually move it to the f5 square. If the knight reaches that square, it will become very strong. g5 is played. Then knight to g3 and queen to d7, preparing for castling long, since kingside castling is no longer possible due to the advanced pawns. c3 is played as preparation for d4. Castling long has occurred, and now with b4, the position is expanding toward the kingside. Then comes d5 and queen to e2. One move that comes to mind here is pawn captures on d5, but that is not a very good move because it helps the opponent get rid of their doubled pawns. Later, when you push pawn to d4, the knight jumps to e4, threatening the queen. If you move the queen, the knight gets captured and your kingside ends up in a poor position.
You have to capture e4. Knight captures e5, bishop captures e5, d captures e5. After that, queen to f5, and you see that the position remains quite good. Rook threatens the queen. After the queen moves away, knight captures e5, and white does not remain in a very good position. Now returning to the previous move, d4 is pushed. C captures d4, e captures d4, bishop to d2, bishop retreats. Queen to e7. The computer does not say queen to e7 is a very good move. It probably came to pressure the A and B pawns in the future. Now rook to b1, knight to d7, castling, knight to e5, knights want to be exchanged. Knight to h5, bishop, knight captures f3, queen captures f3, knights were exchanged. Bishop retreats to f5, and at the same time, it is placed on a very nice diagonal towards the kingside.
b5 came. A captures b5, rook captures b5, and as we talked before, one of the reasons the queen came to e7 was to put pressure on the pawns. If you remember, now queen captures a3 and black is one pawn ahead. Rook c1 came. Looking toward the kingside, careful attention is needed. There is no threat for now, but if later the rook attacks the knight and somehow pushes the pawn forward, white can create checkmate attacks together with the queen and the rook. Now rook h8, the queen must escape. Queen e2 came. Bishop d6, trying to pull the bishop away from the rook's path. e5 came. Rook f5. If the bishop is taken, the rook will be lost, and white offered the rook sacrifice. Black accepted the sacrifice. Now white's plan is both to protect the rook and to threaten the bishop by tempo, and also to exchange the rooks. Now rook a5, the queen has to escape. Queen b2, White must be careful because after taking the bishop, if black takes the rook and white immediately tries to take the rook with the bishop, the queen will be left undefended. Therefore, e captures d6, rook captures a5, then the in-between move, queen e6 comes. It is a check, so it comes with tempo, saving the bishop from being undefended, and at the same time, the rooks have been exchanged.
Now, rook captures on d6. The queen has to move. Queen to e7, putting pressure on c7. Then queen to a1 check, also attacking the bishop. Now bishop goes back to e1. The queen is defending it, so it can't be taken. c5 is played, a mistake for black. When the queen comes to e4, the diagonal is left open. Then knight to g3. White wants to knight jumps to e4, putting pressure on the rook and the pawn. Black need to be careful here. Rook to c6, defending the pawn. King to h2 saves bishop from impasse. Queen to a2. If the bishop moves, the pawn will fall. Now, knight to e4, queen to d5, guarding the pawn. Then f3 to support the knight in case the pawn is pushed forward. Now c4. Queen to b4 check. King to c8. The computer doesn't like this move, recommending blocking with the rook instead, but that would mean losing the pawn. Queen to a4 check again. The king returns to b7. Bishop to f2, now eyeing the d4 pawn and the long diagonal toward the king side. Now c captures d3, bishop captures d4, and rook to a6 is the only move. Then queen to b4 with check, king to c8, queen to f8, another check, and queen to d8 blocks it. Now comes queen to c5. At this point, an idea could be to exchange queens, but white would lose all the advantage, so they decide not to. Now, the computer once again disapproves of the move rook to e6. The idea is likely to reposition the knight and push pawns on the queen side. Now, queen to c4 attacks the rook, and here comes an exchange sacrifice, rook to d6. White cannot take the rook, because if they do, the game ends in a draw. If white captures, queen takes d6 with check. If you block with f4, then d2 is played, and there's only one move left before promotion. You cannot stop the pawn with your queen because your bishop would be hanging. Plus, there's an even stronger move. Queen captures f4 with check, and then the pawn promotes to a queen. Therefore, after the check, the game would end in a draw.
Going back to the actual move, white plays bishop to e5. The computer also disapproves of this move and recommends bishop to e3 instead. Now rook to d5 attacks the bishop, and white makes a big mistake with f4. The engine now shows the position as equal. Then d2 is played, and white sacrifices the bishop with bishop captures c7. Now black must take with the queen. After queen captures c7, white captures the rook. Black then takes f4 with check. White blocks with the knight, and after the king moves closer, at some point black captures the knight and promotes the pawn. However, here black makes a huge mistake by rushing and immediately promotes the pawn to a queen. Then white plays bishop captures d8, king captures d8, and knight to c3, threatening both the queen and the rook. One move that comes to mind is rook to d4, but then queen to g8 gives check, and after the king escapes, the queen is lost. Another idea is queen to d4, but white then plays queen captures d5 with check, forcing the exchange. And just like that, black resigns, and Caruana wins the game, playing with 93% accuracy. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more exciting tournament games with sacrifices like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.